All right, so we're at 10:02, and we try to be as punctual as possible, and keep you all on your schedule. We know it's Friday, and you want to get your work done and get on to the balance of life. So I'm Adam Pearl. I want to welcome everyone. I'm President and CEO of Art Pride New Jersey. I do want to share that we have closed captioning available at the bottom of the screen, so please utilize that if necessary. I also want to share that we are recording today's webinar. So if there's information you need here that you didn't catch, you can go back onto the Art Pride website and watch the webinar. Or if you want to share it with anyone who wasn't able to attend. We also want to encourage you to use the questions and answers feature at the bottom of your screen or the top, depending on what you're using. But use that question and answers to submit for both for me, for Anne Marie, and for our speakers today. And we also want you to keep an eye on the chat feature in case we have some links or files that we want to share with you. So that's it from me for now. Anne Marie Miller, our Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, who's on screen with me this morning. Take it away, Anne Marie.
Adam. Yeah, I was afraid to take my video off because I never know when I hit the enter button what's going to happen. So welcome everybody, and thanks for being here. What's new? The big news is yesterday, Governor Murphy signed S3521 that makes $15 million in federal funds available to the Economic Development Authority and the New Jersey State Council on the Arts to support arts and culture organizations in need. There's actually on the state website and the governor's social media, there's a YouTube video of him signing the bill. And there were several legislators there, including Congressman Pallone, Assemblywomen Carter and Downey, and Senator Gopal from the district, and the Secretary of State, Tahisha Way, was there as well and spoke. Both the governor and the Secretary of State and Congressman Pallone was really well versed in the federal funds coming to the arts, including from the NEA. So, and they spoke very, very highly of the impact of the arts in local communities. The signing took place at the West End Art Center, which is the home for NJREP in Long Branch. And that's Congressman Pallone's district and the district of Senator Gopal and Assemblywoman Downey as well, who were sponsors of the bill. So the bill makes this funding available. The important part, besides the money, is to understand that this is part of a larger package to support small businesses. And at the podium, the sign under Governor Murphy was supporting small businesses. So it's really important that we are acknowledged in the arts as small businesses that are contributing to the economy. There were, a lot of really wonderful references to the arts being so important to the mental health of New Jerseyans throughout the pandemic, and supporting us to get through in so many different ways, and looking forward to reopening and hoping that this funding will help in that reopening as well. We have the fiscal year state budget is up for consideration by the full legislature now that the governor has made his proposal. And there is a new action alert on the Art Pride website. You can see the link below at the bottom that asks your state legislators to support the appropriations that the governor has made for arts history and tourism. And this is the year that he has honored the legislation that was passed last January that increases the state appropriations for arts, history, and tourism. We cannot take anything for granted, so it's very important that you take a moment to ask your state legislators to support those appropriations, and at the same time, offer some information as to how that important this government funding is to reopening the arts all over New Jersey. So the American Rescue Plan, there is more federal funding coming. The funding that was signed yesterday was Corona Relief Fund funding that was from the previous bills that were passed before the American Rescue Plan was signed in March. And so the NEA is receiving $135 million. 40% of that has to go to state arts agencies. So the State Arts Council will again be in the position of distributing that funding. Give you some context, that's why I put in the present budget for the NEA is 167.5 million. So you can see that this is a considerable amount of funding in comparison to their annual budget. The NEA has already made indications that they would like to see funding targeted to small and mid-sized organizations and local arts agencies that re-grant. They are, strictly abiding by the equity standards and values that have been promoted by the Biden-Harris administration to try and ensure that equity is achieved. I know that there were several complaints, voices, pushback, feedback, whatever you want to call it, around the nation regarding the fact that the first CARES funding from the NEA was restricted to organizations that had previously received funds from the NEA over the past 5 years. From what I'm hearing from the chief of staff over at the NEA is that this is going to be much more open to the public. We're finishing up Arts Advocacy Week, Arts Advocacy Summit. Today is the last day of it. And actually right after this webinar, there's a session on facts and figures that Randy Cohen is holding. If you've registered for the summit, you can access that. You can probably, I think, even access that one session if you're interested to go to AmericansForTheArts.org. We will follow next week with visits with all 12 House members, House of Representative members, and the 2 senators to talk about federal funding for the arts, to talk about tax legislation, to talk about the charitable deduction, to talk about arts and education. We have roughly over 50 folks registered to be part of those visits. If in fact you are interested in attending them, there's still room. You would have to email me at amiller@artpridenj.org or Vince Hall at vhall@artpridenj.org to let us know if you wanted to be part of that. We've held 2 briefings this week for all who have already registered for the summit or have indicated that they would like to meet with their congressional representatives to go over how the meetings will be structured and be held. So it's an important time. We're encouraged by the fact that the virtual platform has not diminished the interest. And I have to tell you, having participated in many of the sessions of the summit this week, I think they have been really high level quality, almost better than some of the sessions in the previous years when they've been held live. The speakers that they've gotten from around the country have been really, really interesting. All of the sessions have been recorded for folks to review. So what happened yesterday? So the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant SVOG applications opened and closed yesterday. There were emails that went out, I think it was around 11 o'clock last night, from the Small Business Administration saying that they ran into technical issues even after several trials that were successful. So they've opted, knowing that this is something people have been waiting for a long time, they've opted to shut down, and many folks are disappointed, to say the least. But you can still register for through the portal for information that is updated on a regular basis, and the frequently updated FAQs are at sba.gov. There's a link on the bottom of the screen to tell you where to go for that. So what's coming up in the next 6 to 8 weeks? Creating Change is happening April 22nd and 23rd. If you haven't registered, There is a link there to register. The Theater Alliance and Art Pride are working together on this virtual gathering to help move towards equity, justice, and learning as we try to get our field more equitable and anti-racist within the entire sector. So there are really wonderful speakers as part of this 2-day event, and I urge you to register if you've not done that. The New Jersey Cultural Alliance for Response has a annual meeting coming up on May 6th. It's free, and it's about the monuments, men and women of World War II. It looks like a really interesting session to looking towards the future and deploying the next generation of monuments, men and women, after World War II, and dealing with the other military efforts that have the conflicts that have produced cultural property issues. Okay, save the dates for Thrive. Coming up June 15th and 22nd. We will be posting registration shortly, but wanted to let you know we've all been working real hard on a great conference over 2 days, 2 days to help make sure that folks can think hard without cramming everything in one day, and be able to participate with a full brain and a full heart moving forward, with programs for administrators, executive directors, development folks, marketing folks, and programming folks. I think you'll be really pleased to see that the speakers that we're engaging as in the keynotes, it looks like we'll have keynotes on both dates, really, really high quality. Just to remind everyone that registration is still open to buy tickets for the Philippa Sue concert that is sponsored by Rowan University, coming up on April 16th. I can't believe it. That's like next week already, right? And, the concert, 80% of each ticket will be donated to the New Jersey Arts and Culture Recovery Fund, which is a really great first time. We're seeing an earned income event helping to fund the fund, which is so important. So we're going to move into our focus for today on the New Jersey Arts and Culture Recovery Fund. And I'm going to back out in just a couple of seconds and welcome Sharnita Johnson from the Dodge Foundation and Tammy Herman from the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, who are key to actually having the fund to begin with, working through the Council of New Jersey grant makers to provide enough interest from funders around the state to make this happen. And they will provide you with some information on the deadline coming up on Monday, the phase 1 that's happened, phase 2, and the future. So let's see, I'm gonna stop my video and welcome Tammy and Sharnita, and stop sharing my screen. And let's see if I can hide my self view. We'll be in good shape. And then let's see, we can get Sharnita and Tammy pinned. We'll be good to go. So welcome Tammy and welcome Sharnita today. Thanks for taking the time to spend with us this morning.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, for all of the updates, and happy Friday, everybody. And your technology skills are awesome, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for giving us the space and the time to learn a little bit more about the New Jersey Arts and Cultural Relief Fund. Sharnita and I would like to provide you with a short update on the fund's work in phase 1 and a brief summary of the information contained within the request for proposal and application. We want to make sure that we lift up its most salient points to help you determine if the fund's application is an appropriate one for your organization based on our eligibility requirements and priorities. For those who are familiar with the fund and who may have submitted an application in phase 1, there have been changes made since the launch of that phase, and we're going to be sure to highlight those changes so that you are well informed. Sharnita and I will keep this little session brief because we want to make sure that you have the time to ask any questions you may have about the fund's application process. As you know, the New Jersey Arts and Recovery Fund was established through a coalition of private, public, and corporate partners to ensure the survival and strength of the state's arts and culture nonprofit sector during and after the COVID pandemic. In phase 1, the fund received 154 grant applications, and those applicants reported a staggering need of over $6.2 million. Given that harsh reality, the Recovery Fund developed a scenario through which we could ensure funds were awarded to those organizations that represent and support the most under-resourced and underserved populations in New Jersey. In that thinking, the fund awarded 109 grants, distributing a total of $2.6 million to the field. 100 awards went to organizations requesting general operating support, and 9 went to intermediaries ready to re-grant support to individual artists and culture workers. True to our intent to distribute funds across a broad geographic area, the Recovery Funds awarded grants to organizations located in 19 out of our New Jersey's 21 counties. We are really proud of the work we accomplished together, but we know there's much more to do in order to ensure the survival and the strength of the arts and cultural sector. And we are ready and poised to do that work. And that brings us to today in phase 2. In this phase, the fund will provide grants directly to nonprofit organizations impacted by COVID. Unlike phase 1, the fund is not accepting applications to re-grant support for arts and culture workers. We are only accepting proposals to support financial loss and expenses for organizations in the following areas: personnel, operations and equipment, and professional services. As Anne-Marie indicated earlier, applications for this round of funding opened on March 1st and closes quite soon. In fact, this Monday, April 12th. Eligibility guidelines for this round have been updated to reflect the realities for the community-based organizations in New Jersey and from what we heard in feedback through phase 1. Sharnita, can you speak to those updates, please?
Sure, Tammy, thank you. So I think that this fund is unique in that we have been able to shift the work and based on what we heard from potential applicants. And one of those issues was really around 1099 workers. And so we thought about that and we understand, particularly for small and mid-sized arts organizations, that the way you report how organizations or people are supported is less important than actually that they are supported. So what we have pivoted the fund to support are workers that are 20 hours or more, that are doing at least 20 hours. So a part-time worker, at least 20 hours doing some level of administrative work. So that is work that is keeping the organization going. And that's really important because we got a lot of feedback that these 1099 workers were working lots and helping to sustain these organizations. So it doesn't matter how it's reported, just that these workers are working at least 20 hours and that they have some kind of administrative role to keep the organization going. And then the other piece is that we've opened up the fund to support organizations that have a budget of a pre-COVID budget of up to $5 million. So the previous phase, it was up to $3 million. So we've increased that threshold so that we can support other organizations, larger organizations, which again, very important because the small to mid-sized arts ecosystem in New Jersey is vast, and we wanted to be able to bring those groups in as well. And a couple of things as well that I wanted to clarify, because it tends to be a question. Priority has been given to organizations that are small to mid-size and that are led by people of color, have people of color on the board, and that are doing work in these communities, in BIPOC communities. But that doesn't mean that the organization has to be led by a person of color, and that they're not serving these communities. But the question really is, how are you serving BIPOC communities? Is the board diverse? And these grants are not to start that work. It's to support organizations that have been doing the work. So that's been a question. So this fund, while we are prioritizing certainly organizations that are led by people of color, that have people of color on the board and that are serving people of color communities, this is not a grant program that is specifically to hire a consultant to work on this work. This is certainly an opportunity for organizations that have been doing this work, working in these communities and partnering with people of color in this work to, the application is weighted in a different way. So again, everyone is eligible. You have the opportunity to talk about the work that you've been doing in that space. But this is not a grant to start doing work in that space. And I think there are some questions in the chat maybe. And I think that that's all that the updates on the fund that I wanted to share at the moment.
And I saw that Adam posted the website for the Recovery Fund. If you have questions, our colleague Mike Nuno at the Princeton Area Community Foundation is available to answer the questions that you may have. There's a robust section for frequently asked questions. Please review that. If you have a question that is outside that section, again, please don't hesitate to contact Mike Nuno, and his email address is listed right on the landing page of the Recovery Fund's website.
And I have just added that to the chat as well.
Thank you.
So yes, there was, there's one question. It's actually for Anne Marie. So we're gonna, right at the moment, there's one question. It's for Anne Marie, but Tammy and Sharnita, I don't know if you saw the gratitude from Anita Thomas at Carolyn Dorfman, who has said that the fund has been invaluable in allowing them to hire a full-time digital video marketing assistant who's been working on creating existing and new programming for the dance company. And I will also say a bit of gratitude too, because our Pride received funding from the Arts and Cultural Recovery Fund, which has allowed us to continue to have our full staff, which has allowed us to continue to do both the things that Anne Marie mentioned earlier, as well as a lot of the work that we do in partnership with the New Jersey State Council on the Arts around Discover Jersey Arts and Keep Jersey Arts Alive, continue supporting the industry through this tough time. So Tammy and Sharnita, I think you might be off the hook on questions. I want to thank you for coming, but go ahead, Anne Marie. Yep.
Yeah, I have a question. So the question that I have is basically goes to what Anita just said, and I've also heard from like folks in Jersey City that the Recovery Fund has made such a difference to them during this time. Is there a place to share those stories? On the PACF website, or is there? I know Sharnita's like smiling. We want to, I think it's a good idea in terms of actually getting additional support for us to better understand the difference the Recovery funds are making. So just a question that way.
I'm glad you asked that question, Anne Marie, because I think many of us on the steering committee and certainly the Princeton Area Community Foundation have gotten emails, thank you emails, and lots of support. And we've been certainly collecting those, but we will be doing something more formal. We are sort of figuring that out now, but we definitely will be telling this story. It's very important. And I think a number of folks that received funding have put it on their own social media, have actually put things on their websites. So we appreciate that. We do have a logo, so feel free to use our logo. But you're absolutely right. These are very important stories. These resources have been very important to the arts and culture and history sector in New Jersey. And we want to definitely showcase those stories and the impact.
And then Adam asked a good question, because I wasn't sure if we covered how much actually was raised for the fund, from the beginning when it started.
So $4.4 million has been raised to date, but we're still actively fundraising. So you mentioned the Philippa Sue concert. Please, folks, support the concert. It's gonna be amazing. I have my ticket. So I'm planning a watch party. That is a fun way and a creative way and a really generous partnership with Rowan University. You can donate to the fund as well on the landing page. We have a Facebook page and we are on the Twitter. So please feel free to put your stories and your impact stories on our Twitter as well. And as I said, we're still actively fundraising. We've been really successful in receiving funds from some unusual suspects, and we're very grateful for that. But yes, we're still full court press on fundraising. The need is great.
I think that's totally true. The need is definitely great, and it's a combination of all these things, right? It's the New Jersey Arts and Cultural Recovery Fund. It was the bill that was passed yesterday. It's future federal and state money. We're all gonna have to work together to be able to support everyone and make it through there. Thank you so much for all you're doing, Sharnita and Tammy, and please share our gratitude with the rest of the Arts and Cultural Recovery Fund team.
We will. Thanks so much for having us.
Well, thank you, because I know Tammy has a panel today and Sharnita's busy trying to get more money. So we really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Our pleasure.
Amory, there was that one question in the question and answer for you, if you didn't mind. I don't know if you saw that.
Sure. So I'm trying to, so in terms of next week's meetings with the legislators, right? That was can I repeat the information? So we have meetings scheduled. I think it's every day next week. I have to give a big shout out to Vince Hall and our staff, who's been helping me as my right-hand person and scheduling all these meetings. It's not been easy. You have to be persistent and flexible, and then you have to be on top of all of the details to make sure everyone is informed, especially when there are schedule changes. So what we have about, 50 some people, but then we also have all these students, these New Jersey thespians, who are part of our group as well. So it's a large group. We typically have around 40 in person, but this is a great group. So what we've done is we've signed them all to the different districts in which they vote. And then if they have an affiliation with an arts organization in a different legislative district, they can attend that meeting as well. Plus we have meetings with the senatorial staff for both Senator Menendez and Senator Booker. A lot of these meetings are a little open-ended. We're meeting with staff subject to whether the actual congressional rep might be available to pop in or pop out to the meetings. And the way they're set up, so we have about 5 to 6 people in each different district meeting, and you have an opportunity to introduce yourself, and then Art Pride staff helps with reviewing some of the appropriations that are being requested. And Americans for the Arts has made it very easy to focus on several issues that are of major importance to the arts and cultural sector. If you want to email, me and Vince, if you're interested in joining, Adam just put our email addresses in the chat. So, please join us. And we also had a briefing yesterday that we recorded, so we can share that with you if you're interested in hearing that.
And Marianne, they haven't announced yet when the SVOG applications are going to reopen. They're just working on it, and they're going to make a mass announcement as
right.
soon as possible, right? They said
if you're registered, through the portal for information, that you'll get advance notice of when they plan to reopen. Folks are really upset yesterday. I mean, they were pulling their hair out because it was fast and furious that it went down.
Yep, we're working on it. And yes, another big shout out to both you and Vince, who's with us this morning. He's doing tech behind the scenes. Thank you very much for all the work you're doing this weekend next. All right.
I think we're done.
I think we're done. Thank you to everybody for coming. And we will be in touch. Our next webinar is going to be in May, and we'll be in touch with the date. But we're always around, the Art Pride team, if you need us for anything. And thank you all for coming again this morning. Have a great weekend. Stay well, everybody.